Dude, I'm in the ball. I don't even think he's gonna wait till mid-May, fam. I think he's just ready to fucking go. Like he's ready for this thing to launch, dude. V3. Let's just talk about this. But before it was V3, he said V3 would only be out for a couple of days. Well, we realized that we had to make some adjustments and all that good stuff. So now I'm thinking that's why I'm in the ballpark. If we like prior to May type deal, like could be possible.
Yeah.
What I think though is no matter what, it can't really be like a stealth launch because people are gonna know within like 30 minutes, regardless. You know what I mean? Like people know V4 launched and he didn't say nothing.
Well, by stealth launch, we're talking about people playing price.
Oh yeah, I feel you.
Because like when it's launched, the snapshot's already happened. You ain't getting your copy of Hex. Whatever you got is what you got. So whatever y'all got to do right now to make sure that you got your money printers ready, do it. You know what I mean? Because like everyone's
Man, I'll be the contrarian here. So Richard Hart already has the playbook to be able to make a coin that does a 10,000x. He did it with Hex. The only way that he got a 10,000x there is to get a massive dip early on and then measure from the bottom up. And so, he's talked about a 10,000x on Pulsechain and Pulsex. Well, what's the most likely scenario to get a chart like that? Well, it's to get another chart like Hex, in my opinion. And the only way to do that is to get a massive dump early. And so I think everybody, is depending on Richard to help the price chart and to make it go parabolic. I would argue that maybe he doesn't want it. I would argue he doesn't want it to do that early. I'd argue he wants to get the lettuce hands out early. He wants to see a big dump. And so what do you do to play that out? Well, frankly, if I was Richard, I would slow roll everything at this point. We see the fatigue in the price chart. Hex isn't pumping off of Richard Hart information anymore. Everyone's bored with the continual, test nets and things of that nature. And so, what happens if he slow rolls it? There's not a launch till August or September. Everyone's fatigued. Hex price chart falls below 6 cents. It falls below 5 cents. And then he does a stealth launch. And then he doesn't, frankly, say a peep. He doesn't say a peep until, the end of the year or the beginning of the year. Well, that could lead to the sell-off in order to get a 10,000x price chart. You just don't get the price chart that I think Richard is after. And we've seen how he's played his cards more recently. And so I'm not stacking my Hex bags right now. I stacked them already when price was lower. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I'd rather protect my USD value because if we really do, and I'm in the camp, I think we definitely could see a launch in the next 30 to 45 days. Maybe it is sooner, maybe it is. But man, I'd rather protect my USD value because what happens if you go and you buy Hex today and it dips to 3 cents, your value gets cut in half, and then you're trying to do this Hex trade and swap your Hex on Pulsechain for Pulsechain or Pulsex that everybody and their dog is doing with no liquidity, and then there's a sell-off on ETH. Well, you get butchered on the ETH side and on the Pulse side. You get butchered. You got to decide how you want to play your bags.
Right.
But man, for me, I'm a lot more interested in protecting my USD value at the expense. If we go on a run, I'm going to miss out. I get it. And everybody says, don't get left behind. I get it. My bags are packed. I'm really comfortable with my ETH holdings right now. But man, what I have in dry powder, I'm really comfortable sitting in stables.
Your bags are packed. So like, obviously it's easy for you to say that, but if their bags aren't packed, even though the Hex price is higher than like when me and you started DCA, and then we around the 2 cent range, 3 cent range, and we really packed our bags up there. I would say this is still a good opportunity to get in because if we launch in mid-May, maybe we go down and touch the 5.5 or even 4.5 range. Access Live thinks we're going to touch the 5.5 cent range, and they can still get the chance to get that copy because I think long-term Hex is going to do amazing on both chains. There will be a sell-off on Ethereum, yes, but long-term, for me, it's the risk versus the reward of making sure I have assets on both chains is better than holding my economic energy in USDC. Unless your bags are packed.
I think that's a great point. If you have no holdings, I think that's an excellent point. Excellent.
Yeah,
point.
you got to make sure your bags are packed foremost before you start to think about, what do I want to have in USDC, or do I want to play the swapping game, or do I want to it's making sure you have your long-term holdings for both chains.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course. Well, we definitely want all you guys. You want it all, right? Like, no one's gonna make a perfect play in this whole scenario, but we want the best possible outcome that we can attain for each and every one of us, right? And so, like, if you don't have enough T-shares, if you don't have stakes, if you don't have the hex that you were envisioning your goal to be, if you like, all of these things come into play when I'm talking about getting the money printers ready. Like, you can still get T-shares right now and earn trustless yield today, and that is beneficial for you no matter what anyone has to say. People don't have the T-shares ready, and there's going to be one snapshot opportunity. So why would you not want to at least get yourself some stakes ahead of time to make sure that you're ready ahead of time? Same for the icosa stakes, same for the hedrons. Whatever stakes you got, make sure that your money printers are ready, because the snapshot is a once in a lifetime moment. Okay, it's going to be one time, snapshot happens, and it moves on. And then we have two separate chains, two separate networks, and they're all going to go and do beautiful things in the future. But that's also looking very short term and short sighted. And our company and our community is actually very long term vision. So, yes, could the price dip down to 5.5 cents? For sure. There's a big liquidity wall at 5.5 cents. There's been a big liquidity wall for many months now at this point in time. Right. So, yeah, could it dip down? For sure. But do I see it going lower? Sure. After Pulsechain launches, I could see some crazy stuff happening. That's not a bad thing long term. Like, how long are we talking? So you lost half your value. That's a bear market in crypto. Yeah, it sucks, but that's a bear market in crypto. We just went through a 97% dip. So like to say like you lose half your value, sure. Like, could it happen? For sure. That's crypto for you, man. Welcome to crypto.
Yeah, but
Bro,
if you're a
that's a
long-term
big
holder,
deal, though. That's a big deal. Like, that's a massive difference. That's where you've got to make a decision. You can dollar cost average in to mitigate. But I think so many people say this narrative of like, oh, who cares if you bought high? Well, I freaking care. If my bags, if I could have got a 50% better buy price, well, 100 grand versus 200 grand is a very different. A million
That's
versus 2 million is
that's
very different. 5 versus 10,
that's
it's a
greed. That's greed
massive
right there,
difference.
right? So like, if you
A
aren't
hundred
willing, so
percent. What are we all
that
here for, bro? A
well, yeah,
hundred percent.
the gains. So you average in, right? Like, if you got 100 grand to
Yeah,
be
I
doing it,
like the
then you go in
averaging
with
it.
20, right? You go in with 20 at first, and then if the price dips, cool, you get to scoop some more up with another 20 or 30 or
bingo.
whatever you want to go in. That's how you can
Sure,
get it done
sure.
right there, for sure. But like, yeah, I'm not saying everyone go take all their liquid cash right now and just go convert it into hex and let's run it for the win no matter what. No, that's definitely not the scenario. But there is
No, I appreciate the added context. I'm with you.
yeah,
I'm with you.
yeah, for sure. And again, like, we all have to make a play that's going to be beneficial for ourselves. You don't want to be put in a situation where you end up strapped for cash. Like, if you go put all your money right now into this project because you think Pulse is going to launch in the next 2 weeks, you're fucked. You know what I mean? Let's be real, right?
Yeah, it could be
Because what if
wrecked.
it doesn't? Yeah, what if it doesn't launch in the next 2 weeks or a month or 3 months or 4 months or 5 months? Yeah, you could absolutely get yourself wrecked, because then the price could dip. Guys, if we go past mid-May, Hex is dropping, and it's going to drop hard. Like,
I agree.
it's going to be a brutal situation if
Ready?
we end up in that situation, right?
Ready?
So like, yeah, play your cards right, play it smart. There is risk, there is reward, and what are you willing to risk for the reward? But don't put all your fucking chips in, right? Like, that's not the way to go. All your
Yeah.
chips is like, you're gonna get wrecked.
Yes. And
Yeah,
that's yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say ATX. I mean, both of you guys are right. ATX and Money Talk is that
Right.
the guy who apes in. That's the problem with the most people in crypto is that they ape in. They don't leave themselves any dry powder left behind to get better positions. And the key is dollar cost averaging. That's always the answer. It's never not the answer. It's dollar cost averaging. In fact, that's how I was able to get my cost basis. I started my cost basis in Hex at 30 cents. I bought the high. Yeah, coming all the way down. I kept DCAing, but I waited a while to DCA. Waited till we got, everyone, even though everyone's screaming, buy at 20 cents, buy at 15 cents. I knew that we were not at the low. I waited till we got really low and started really buying heavy in the 2 and 3 cent range. And I got my dollar cost average cost basis down to 3.5 cents from 30 cents. That is the power of DCA right there.
Yeah, but that's only
That's
maybe
crazy.
15% of the crypto community is that savvy.
Take
I
all
was
the
gonna say anybody experienced in crypto would know it's gonna drop 90% at least if it's like within the first 2-3 years of release, and it ran up 10,000x.
I hope that, Pulse Chain launches and we get to 100x ASAP and we're all selling off in the sunset in yachts and Lambos. Like, I hope that's the case. That'd be great.
Guys, there's gonna be a whole lot of multimillionaires made in the future, okay? If done correctly. Like, I know it won't be like an overnight type deal, like Money Talk even says too. You know what I mean? There is a potential that things go hog wild for sure. And if that is the case, then make sure to have a proper plan ready. But at the same time, zoom out, folks. Zoom out and just envision like what 100x your bag looks like, what a 500x your bag looks like, and how are you going to be able to prosper off that? I know I talk about that all the time. Yeah, I mean, guys, right now we got V4 happening, we got transaction for Gwei happening. So what I would recommend for anyone who's trying to get in right now is set limit orders to get yourself some prices, because when Gwei goes stupid like this, it ain't worth paying the transaction fees. I hate seeing Gwei above 20 in all reality in my mind, but it's tough to even see it below that now. So if y'all are trying to get if y'all are trying to get in, jump in real fast, I would set the limit order pretty close to where the price is, at least right now, because like paying these gas fees right now, you're just going to be wasting that bag.
Do you think there's any, is that a signal for how we might launch mainnet? It'd be fun to speculate about timeframes and all that stuff, since it feels like we're getting closer.
So this seems like a really important thing.
Mm-hmm.
The ratio between Pulse and Pulsex.
Hello.
It started at almost 1-to-1. You can see the screenshot publicly, and then it ended up at like 3-to-1. And I even took a screenshot when it was like way out of whack, and I don't think anybody could expect really getting 60,000 PLSX for one pulse. Of course, that would be your 20,000 X in 5 minutes.
I thought you edited the photo. Is how crazy that number was.
No, that was a real glitch. It must have been somebody adding liquidity with the wrong number of zeros or something.
Ooh.
But the moral of the story is that if it starts at 1-to-1 ish, and then it moves to 3-to-1. So if I'm taking a tiny little bit of my PLSX stack and I'm moving it to Pulse and then I'm moving it back to PLSX, that would be the situation where you 3x that little stack of PLSX. So I'm very hesitant ever to like talk about trading, even because I like having a long-term mindset. But it's worth noting for people that if that ratio starts at something that is not what the market agrees to, then that seems to be some sort of opportunity for people who are early.
Yeah, but don't just look at the ratios. You've got to pull down the menu and look at price impact. Otherwise, you're going to get wrecked.
Yeah, it's something to be said about the liquidity is very thin on V4 and V3. So be careful, like you said, Magic Carpet Ride. You got to be really careful with the price impact, because you can wreck yourself really quick.
Don't fucking ratio trade. It's real simple. Don't ratio trade. It's just because it's a bad habit to trade, period. You will eventually get wrecked. Problem is, one person will win and post it all over Twitter so everybody can think they can do it. So that's my suggestion.
That ratio got spoken a lot about in one of the private groups with RH, and just so everyone knows, I bitched and complained about that 1-to-1 ratio, and I did not agree with it. But hey, just speaking my piece. So it is an extremely thin pair, so that ratio almost doesn't matter to some degree, like, which is kind of like what Maddie's point is, where again it quickly moved to that 3-to-1, and it's done this multiple times now. So again, these are test nets. You don't want to extract too much from them, but that has been that ebb and flow. And when like myself and Das Bomb and the guys that can actually do math, when we work through some of that stuff, a lot of some of the stuff that we basically were trying to derive some ratios that we thought made sense as a good starting point valuation actually came pretty close to that 1-to-3 ratio. So it's interesting how without having that stuff set, it seemed to naturally progress to that spot more than once. So Again, don't over read into that, but that is something. But the biggest thing that I wanted to bring up too, which is again a point that Maddie and Denny brought up, the one pair that had liquidity that I thought was the biggest to mention was the PLS hex pair. And Ty and me have talked about this, and a handful of other guys have talked about it for a while. We've talked so much about swapping hex for PLS in that early phase, and that's been the move. That is not the move. Don't
Listen to those words.
do that. That ratio, that pool is thin as hell. If you guys want to pick a price for where you think Pulse and Hex should be, let me know, because I can go set that price anywhere y'all want it, because the pool is so thin that anybody who's got a liquid Hex bag can wreck it or pump it either direction. And so you're just going to be in this race. I mean, I would not be surprised if you see literal swings of 2 and 3x on that bag up and down both directions. Like, it'll get hit that hard because people aren't going to pay attention. They're not used to the thin. This won't be candles. These will be flamethrowers. It'll go up and down that dramatic because it's going to be one of the thinnest pairs that's ever had that much. Like, they're going to be able to write an economics textbooks about how wrecked people end up in that pair. So people, please pay attention to that one. If you're going to ratio trade anything, there could not be a worse thing to trade. Not only just for how thin that pair will be, but also for how valuable it's like to be in the future. Don't touch your PLS PHEX pair. Leave it alone. Wait till it gets thick.
Yeah, I just did a quick example on it. If you put in one hex, it tells you you're going to get 130 PLS as a ratio just when you look at it. But then if you put in 100,000 units of hex and pull down to look at the price impact, it's 26%. That's a quarter of your bag wiped off right there and then. So just don't do it.
Everything that y'all just said, don't. Ratio trading, it will get you freaking wrecked, especially trying to do. I don't recommend anything about the Hex Pulse pair, like, at all. I mean, liquidity-wise, that sucks. That's crazy that it's that low. You think the AMM fixer bot keeps at that level? And then also, the Pulse X, it looks like we are settling in that 3-to-1 range. But again, like, it has to be so juicy, like Matty all in. Like, what was it, 63,000 to 1? Sign me up for that ratio. Like,
I would take that trade.
Yeah, dude, I'll take that trade all day. You know what I mean? But yeah, if you're talking 5-to-1, 3-to-1, like, it ain't worth the risk of what you're about to get. It's just better to DCA. So, like, I know we keep saying DCA, folks, but if you DCA for the first year to 2 years and just make that your plan.
Yeah, there's
in fact, if you guys are cool, I like to hear from like guys like Walrus and Maddie. You guys were early to Hex. And I've seen some of your guys' streams. You talk about how, or at least some of the guys have, that they wish they would have waited before going into Hex. You know, everybody knows you waited like 30 days. You got some of the best buy prices. How would you DCA into some of the assets over on Pulsechain?
Yeah, so Richard, I wasn't following him that closely before Hex launched, and I just knew he was giving stuff for free to Bitcoiners. I was a Bitcoiner. So he said, don't buy day one, and so I bought on day 3. I think that with a lot of things that launch, there's like a pattern where a lot of trading happens in the first 3 days. And so some things trade a lot differently at the beginning compared to what they do a little bit after that. But I mean, even I would say in this case, dollar cost averaging is king. And that's another thing. Like, I focus on that myself.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I think just overarching can give people a bit of framework. So one is obviously that liquidity is really thin. But there's a few ways that you can like still participate in a few of those things. So if you want to provide liquidity with a small as in a single digit portion of your bag, there's a few ways you can look at that. So now the way you can look at it is almost as a burn and a yield. So you can look at this as like, say the PLS Hex pair, for example, we're talking about. Okay, so that pair, just assume that you're just going to get like that ratio will move so violently that depending on whatever it is you choose to actually go and remove it, you're going to end up with a horrible ratio and a ton of impermanent loss on that initial LP that you provided. But you're going to get such an outrageous portion of the fees that you'll end up having an APY that's probably triple digits for some time frame there. So again, if you want to look at like some of these, like say rather than playing like a ratio trade game, if you're looking for a, hey, I've got XYZ bags, I've got most of the stuff figured out, but I've got 5 or 6% that I've got allocated to like, hey, like I'm trying to go shoot a home run, right? Like I'm trying to swing for the fences. One of the plays would be to actually provide liquidity in some of these pairs, but you wouldn't want to really look at it with that traditional idea of, hey, I want this thing to be relatively stable or come back to the same ratio so that I don't have that impermanent that would become permanent loss when you remove it. But just basically saying, hey, I'm willing to burn 4% of my bag. I'm going to leave it in the pool and then just take the fees and then hope that the fees catch up at some point. So that's again, if you're looking for a more high risk play, that's about one of the only ones that I might tell someone to say, hey, investigate, play with V4, understand some of these risks. And again, like single digit percentages, like if you're looking for a way to, maybe capitalize and hit a home run, that's a place I think more players would be willing to take a risk and have a better outcome. I think you'd have a better range of outcomes for most players on that rather than actually trying to like fight the pair game if you're looking for like a more engaging play. The other is people overvalue the copies if you're looking at the short term. So if you have the more traditional hexagon mind state and you're like, and you think P hex and you think of it the way we think of E hex now, and you're like, hey, I'm going to stake it till I make it 10, 3, 5, 15, whatever these long-term horizons are, then P hex is as valuable as you sort of think it is in your head as a copy. But if you're looking at any of these copies in the 1 day ratio trade, 3 day, 5 day, 2 week range, they're nowhere near as valuable as you think. And the reason is because when you look at the price of them now, you think, okay, I've got $100 worth of Pulse if I get copy, or $100 worth of Hex if I get copies. Hopefully in some relative range, I'm able to get close to $100 worth of Pulse on that side, but you can't. And the math gets a little abstract. But the reason is because PLS basically got purchased at, or we basically think of its cost basis as Sacrifice. But when you look at the way the ratios are set on PLS, Pulse is priced like it's ETH and then adjusted for supply. So you're not that original pairing with the PRC20s, PLS is much more expensive. So when you actually break it down, your copies, assuming you kind of get full pop on them, they're worth like 6 to 7% in your head of their dollar value versus PLS. So be careful about overvaluing the copies. Your principal is more important. And yeah, that's some framing.